So the rumor suggests that the Rodri deal is going to be somewhere around 70 to 75 million. Now, Manchester City is still playing hard to get, and they have set a bar where they are not going to accept any offer other than 80 million, and Barcelona is trying to convince them to agree to a 70 or a 75 million with add-ons kind of a deal. Now, the question is, by the time you would be watching this video, this deal just might be finalized. Even if it's not, the main question is Rodri, a central defensive midfielder who is 30 years old, is he really worth 70 plus million euros? That is what this video is basically all about. This is Talking Tiki Taka, and let's talk about it. Now, just in general, how many clubs and how many people you can just go up to and ask them, would they be willing to buy a central defensive midfielder who is 30 years old, who just came back from an ACL injury, and more importantly, scheduled for another back operation which might put him away for 5 to 6 months maximum. So in that situation, without knowing the name, without knowing the accolades, without knowing the current context of the club, just in general, if you ask anyone, they would say no, we would not be willing to pay 70 odd million euros for a 30-year-old central defensive midfielder who just came back from an ACL injury. Now, when it comes to Barcelona and when it comes to the overall transfer dynamics that is going on between Barcelona, Real Madrid, and overall the power index gap that is decreasing over a certain period of time since the last 2 seasons that Flick took over, when you suddenly put all those things into context, then it starts making sense. Now, this video is not just about justifying why Barcelona should sign Rodri. It's rather objectively trying to figure out why Barcelona has been carrying forward this negotiation for such a long period of time, and they are not giving up, they are not burning the bridges, they are not being like, okay, if you don't give Rodri us for 55 or 60 millions, we are out of this deal. No, there has been no point in this transfer negotiation where either of the parties has shown any form of disinterest. They have been negotiating and they have been dragging this along. Now, from Manchester City's perspective, it's a very clear objective. They need to and they want to get the maximum amount out of this deal. It's the last year in contract, so next year Rodri walks free and Manchester City gets nothing. So this is their cash grabbing opportunity, and when a club proactively comes in, you do the bargain, you do the negotiation, and you try to make the best deal possible for your club, and that's how it should be. And especially when your player has just won the World Cup Golden Ball, and he is a Ballon d'Or winner, you would absolutely negotiate. Now, from Barcelona's perspective, there are basically the main aspect that I want to start as a form of justification why Barcelona is showing so much interest. Now, if you look at the last 2 seasons, especially in the Champions League, what would be that one singular point that comes to your mind? You don't have to think much, let me tell you. It's the Inter goal, and it's some of the red card decisions, some of the refereeing decisions, obviously. But other than that, it's the Inter goal that we just couldn't defend for 2 minutes. It is definitely being not ready for Atletico Madrid, being not ready for fighting in all 4 competitions, and just in general, when we lost some of our midfielders, who is literally the heart of this team, when we didn't have Pedri for a long period of time, when we didn't have De Jong for a long period of time, it eventually cost us. It eventually cost us titles. So Barcelona right now is a club that absolutely doesn't lack in youth and prospects. But in order to become successful in all 4 competitions in Europe, youth and prospects alone do not win you titles and do not win you trophies. Now, you can put defense into that mix as well, that our defense is not the best, but I'll come to that later on. This video is about Rodri and why we need him, and also Rodri plays a huge role in defense as well. I'll get into that. So, youth and prospect will definitely give you the X factor. It will definitely give you a certain amount of enthusiasm. It will definitely give you a lot of energy, exuberance, but it will, in many cases, not provide what experience can provide. And when we talk about a player like Rodri, who doesn't have to play box to box, rather he can orchestrate, rather he can count his minutes, rather he can manage how much physical labor he's putting into his shifts. And when you see Rodri play, you do kind of see shades of Busquets, where you didn't see Busquets running on and down, on and up and on the field. You just didn't see it. Busquets used to sit central. Busquets used to orchestrate. Busquets used to control, and Busquets used to set the rhythm for the entire team, for the entire midfield, and obviously for the forwards to sort of fight something with, right? So from that aspect, the age for me is secondary. What we primarily need is that anchor figure in the midfield. that press resistance, that control, that experience. Now you can definitely talk about that Pedri and De Jong might be of similar profile. I would disagree with that in principle. Why? Pedri is a different form of a midfielder, which is very unique in its own right. But what Rodri does, the physicality, the control, the understanding, the experience, which was very clearly visible in the World Cup. Part of the reason that I wasn't really pissed off because of Pedri being benched in the World Cup was because I could clearly see what kind of strategical ploy De La Fuente was trying to implement in his game, and that didn't really disappoint me. I just couldn't see Pedri enough, and in a way that gave me a certain bit of relief as well that he will stay safe. But other than that, every single time Rodri had the ball during the entirety of the World Cup, you could really feel Spain just breathe easy. And this is exactly the kind of tension alleviation that we require in our team in situations like Champions League knockout stages, in situations like where we are trailing behind in the second leg. And this is something that energy and youth doesn't alone will provide you. You will require experience, and not just experience backed by caliber, and experience backed by the ability to do something about it. And that is exactly what Rodri brings into the table. That was the first point. Now, second point is I was mentioning midfield defense. So for me, Rodri is going to play as much part as a midfielder as he is going to play as a defender. Now, what do I mean by that is simply the flick system is notorious for maintaining an absurd high line, which eventually catches us in certain situations where teams have fast wingers who has good line breaking passers of the ball, and in certain situations we could literally see this high line leaving us high and dry. And in those situations, you cannot always blame the center backs, the full backs, the back line. Sometimes in our form of football, in the flick system of football, that single pivot, the role that Busquets in a way used to play, the role that in the last season De Jong played really well whenever he got the chance, and how many games he was really fit in. He played a brilliant role in that. He stopped the initial onslaught of attack, and especially in situation of breaks and counters. And there is literally no better midfielder in the world right now other than Rodri, or better than Rodri, who is equipped, who is properly has the skill set to stop those kind of counters, those kind of attacks. And just in general, when you have a central defensive midfielder who for A knows the backline, he knows his Spanish teammates, and more than that, he can orchestrate. He can command them around. He can tell them what to do. He can tell Kubarsi what to do. He can tell Gerard Martin what to do. He can tell Cortez what to do. He can tell Eric Garcia what to do. He can show the fullbacks. He can give signals to fullbacks when to make a run and when not to make a run, when to go up, when to stay down, when to maybe just commit a professional tackle if required. So these are the instructions that Rodri can provide from the central defensive midfield position, which will provide a great deal of solidarity to the backline, which we have seen become extremely vulnerable, especially in last season when Koundé and Balde were not in the best of forms and they were not just tracking back. We definitely lost Inigo Martinez, which had a huge impact on the overall proceedings. But just in general, I feel that if Rodri comes in, then it's not just going to be the midfield being sorted. It's also going to play a huge role in the defensive backline, and how a single captain, a leader in the midfield, not just wearing the armband, someone who can command around and someone who will be respected by the teammates, who knows who Rodri is. There is no need of any credentials. There is literally no need of any CVs. You know who Rodri is. He won the Golden Ball and he is the Ballon d'Or winner. So from that aspect, I have absolutely no doubt that the moment you bring Rodri into this flick system, the defense of Barcelona automatically becomes at least 3 times more reliable and 3 times less vulnerable. So these are the 2 biggest highlighting main headliner points for me why I feel this deal is worth it. And definitely the experience that we have in the midfield in the form of Fermin, in the form of Gavi, even in the form of Pedri, all these players have still a tremendous amount of time left in front of them to learn from someone like Rodri, and it's going to be absolutely priceless. Now, there is only one caveat. And this is something that no one can deny, and this is probably the only factor that just might question, is actually Rodri worth 70 million? Now, the injury is something you cannot control, and when it's an ACL injury, even in the earlier stages of your career, it seems to have a very detrimental effect in the overall progress that you might have as a footballer. And the ACL that Rodri had, and after he returned from that injury in Manchester City, that was very clearly visible that he just did not return as the same player as he was prior to the ACL injury. But at the same time, we did see over a period of time, when he had a certain amount of rehabilitation and just in general got into the thick of things, he picked his pace up once again. And that is something that shows the caliber and the quality of someone who has won the Ballon d'Or and who has just led his team to win the World Cup. So injury is something that A, you do not have any control over, and B, can come at any given time for any player. You can look at Hazard, you can look at some of the biggest examples that are out there, transfers that had a lot of promise, players who had a lot of potential but eventually absolutely ruined by unfortunate injuries. And that is something you just cannot control, and that is something it's a gamble in football that you just have to take. And for me, the biggest concern is the back surgery that he is going to have, because I would have really loved the season to start with with Rodri's integration into this team. Once he had set the pace, once a proper role would have been established for a profile like Rodri, then if there is a sabbatical or there is a requirement for him to sort of step down or take a break or maybe even not play in certain matches, the role would have been defined. What a CDM needs to do inside FC Barcelona, that role would have been very specifically defined, which will not be possible to do because most likely he's not going to be available. Even if we sign him, he's not going to be available in the early stages of the season, and that is extremely not a good positive thing when it comes to signing Rodri. Now, all in all, there are positives, there are negatives. There is one another thing, the power dynamics. I think at this point in time, Barcelona is invested. When we have literally taken the deal out of Real Madrid's hand, also help from the player and the club as well. But this right now is not just about football and tactical way of integrating a footballer into the club. It's also a political decision as well. So I do see the Rodri deal going through eventually, because it has reached a certain stage where it's very difficult for a club like Barcelona to come back from it. And from a footballing point of view, there is only positive. I can only see Rodri going to any team, not just FC Barcelona, and making them instantly better. He's just that good of a footballer. So there is absolutely no doubt that the inclusion of Rodri, no matter at which physical condition he comes in, it's just gonna fit like a glove. And he's just gonna fit right into this whole ecosystem of Barcelona and Flick. He knows the players, he knows how the manager plays football, he definitely knows the environment that he's going to be in and what kind of support the fans are going to give him. So all in all, Rodri is going to come in, find himself comfortable, and just in general, he's going to play brilliant football. There is no doubt about that. It's just about, can Rodri remain healthy and can we get him as soon as possible? That's eventually what this deal is going to be decided on. So that's my 2 cents. Do let me know in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And I would absolutely appreciate your support in this new channel. This is Azim from Talking Tiki Taka. See you in the next video.